Hi. Good morning, everyone. I'm Naki Khan. I'm the physician lead for machine learning with the global healthcare industry team. So excited to have everyone here today. I think by now you've likely appreciated, heard, seen, firsthand experienced AI and the art of possible with generative AI from the sheer fact of just walking around this conference, I'm sure. But this session is really about how do you do it? How do you actually really get there? And how do we do this in the notoriously complex environment of healthcare? How do we do this in a way that's massively secure, that's massively robust, that's rigorously tested, and ultimately drives impactful patient outcomes? And for that, I have who I would consider a world expert in this, more or less by now, my esteemed colleague, Dr. Melik Samai of Froedtert Health.
Thanks, Naki. Morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. This is my fourth reInvent, but also it's the first one I'm on the stage. I'm really excited to be here. I have to say, every year, AWS and reInvent inspire me with the kind of innovation and capabilities that actually unlock not only organizations like ours, but actually also capabilities that serves our patient and community at large. Our cloud strategy and cloud journey at Froedtert started with one single important focus, which is transformation. How can we rethink reaching to patients where they are and deliver the kind of experience that actually deliver value for them? When we start thinking about the transformation in that mindset, we actually removed a lot of barriers that we think and consider as kind of a healthcare system. And for us, one of the first questions we start asking ourselves, where does transformation in healthcare truly begin? The first and simple question, yet very powerful, it was actually with our patients. We needed to reach the patients where they are, whether it's in the clinic, in their homes, or during their daily lives through digital technology. So I'm going to go today and share with you kind of that journey and how we moved that journey from being a healthcare system who was mostly on-prem to move to a healthcare system where we drive our patient care through a very digital technology infrastructure and actually enable us to deliver generative AI capabilities at a massive scale. So on this journey, I would like to introduce you to the healthcare system and the organizations that has been driving this transformation. Froedtert Health System and the Medical College of Wisconsin came together to be one of the largest integrated health network in the state of Wisconsin. With 18 hospitals, 1,800 beds, almost 2,000 physicians, we deliver today more than 1.7 million visits per year in outpatient visits, and more than 200,000 visits in the ER in the last year alone. In addition to that, we are the largest private research institution in the state of Wisconsin. Inception Health is the innovation and the digital healthcare arm of Froedtert Health. We are a clinical innovation arm, which means we deliver care to our patients. Inception Health today created more than 25 digital therapeutics protocol covering more than 35 conditions. And in the last 3 years alone, since we started this journey, we delivered more than 10,000 prescriptions, digital prescriptions to our patients. And we'll get to this later. In addition, we do invest in innovation. We have 17 active investments. We try to support our community of startups and innovators to integrate with us and work with us on innovating our care services. And more importantly, we also build the kind of technology that is driving today more than 80,000 patients on a monthly basis to use our digital components and technology. And we drive millions of API calls each month through AWS. So that kind of transformation requires us to really think about what is digital strategy. And for us, we started with this first principles. The least utilized resource in healthcare is actually the patient. So how can we drive the kind of technology beyond our walls? how we can drive technology to help us deliver the care services where the patients are and make them manage their care through self-service and support. Our journey as clinicians should not be just at the office where we meet the patient. It should be beyond that. And if we really strive to deliver the care technology at scale, we don't have enough physicians to do it. So technology is a strategic opportunity for us to really drive on our mission to care for our community. We are a community-driven healthcare system. So let's start by the beginning. Probably most of you have these conversations with your technology leads, which is the decision between cloud and on-prem. We have invested heavily in our on-prem infrastructure over the last decades at Froedtert. I would like to say it all the time. We have 5 data centers, and we have 5 more data centers than what we need. But most of the conversations when we started this journey was around technology, was around performance, was around security, was about do we have the right people, the right skills, what about compliance? It was this conversation about these technical capabilities. And in reality, those still very important, yet should not be driving our decision. Actually, the decision for us to move to the cloud was purely strategic. What the cloud was not about actually where we are hosting our services. It was actually the capabilities that the cloud offer to have a shared responsibility model between a hyperscaler and a healthcare system like ours. What we needed was an agility to develop, an agility to deploy, and actually offering our engineering team capabilities to be able to iterate fast without worrying about the infrastructure and the security behind. So something we realized then very early in this journey was actually that technology is the business in healthcare. I will do it again. Technology is the business in healthcare. And I'm a clinician, so it's like, those are 2 different things. So for us to do that, we actually had to rethink the role of technology. In the traditional sense, most healthcare systems operate through an electronic health record system. We host Epic, for instance. We use it for more than 17 years. And we think about it as the back office of our hospital system. And then the digital experience for patients was honestly something as an afterthought. The digital experience initially for patients was, let's give access to the patient either for a pre-visit summary or an after-visit summary. Let's offer some capabilities to help them come to our hospitals. We never considered digital experience as actually treating patients as consumers. And that was something that we realized was problematic. What we knew is that we need to leverage the AHR as a care operations services, but we still have the trust and we own the care experience we deliver to our patients. That was not possible just by building a portal. So what we decided, actually we moved in the journey that we realized we needed to be deeply integrated in the AHR, but also building the cloud capabilities to allow us to drive the care experience and the digital experience in the same way, in the same manner. And what I mean by this is actually our clinical team owns both the care experience and the digital platform. Another lesson we learned was initially we treated data as a medical record. We treated data at the patient level. But when we started building our digital experience, we needed to know more about the patient. We needed to drive personalization, we needed to drive machine learning and recommendation engines. And then we shifted actually our strategy about thinking about data honestly only for medical record information or for research, to start thinking about the 3rd pillar, which is the data must be very different. We need to start thinking about the patient data in a longitudinal format. We need to start about the patient in terms of a journey, not anymore in terms of encounters. And we needed to do this at a much faster time to drive insight. We leverage AWS Kinesis Firehose, we leverage stream processing, we leverage Spark, and we leverage so many capabilities to allow us to do that. Not to actually look at insights only, but also to actually drive experience. And that led us to build our data lake. So this entire journey was not actually pre-built. All of this were discoveries along the journey. Every 6 months, we learn something new, and we try to drive the value. So how did we do it? This is kind of our current architecture. The first thing we started with is actually people. This is one of the most important things. We are a healthcare system that is actually engineering-driven and with a product mindset. So we removed the silos that exist in traditional healthcare system. We moved the silo that we had it initially where we have things by functions. We have IT, we have legal and compliance, we have clinical operations, and what we realized, those are barriers that create friction. If you heard today the keynote from Dr. Vogel, the CTO of Amazon, they used this idea of two pizza team. That's exactly what we are today. We do not exceed more than 2 pizza team. Our teams are very small, they're product-driven, they have engineers, clinicians, clinical informaticians, user researchers, combined together in a small team that drive one single value. On top of that layer, we knew that we needed the right foundation. We initially started, and I do remember this 4 years ago when we started with an AWS account. I just put my credit card and I started building. I was like, that's not how it's gonna work. So what we needed was really building the foundation. And I would like to say, this is where AWS partnership was amazing. It was not just a hyperscaler or a cloud provider. AWS helped us build a landing zone for healthcare. And I encourage all of you to take advantage of that. That was amazing. I can tell you, in 3 weeks, we had a multi-account organization on AWS built with all the guardrails, guard duty, and all the security protocols that we needed to get started. The second layer was start building things. So I will highlight 2 things. We actually went the route of pure serverless. So the decision for us was, if we're gonna take advantage of the cloud, we need to take it as a cloud-native team. So rather than doing a shift and lift to the cloud, our decision was we're just gonna build everything from scratch. And we relied heavily on serverless infrastructure by AWS. One of my favorite is Lambda, API Gateway, and step functions. On top of that layer, once we have that application layer, we actually build 2 critical components on this. We build one about analytics and personalization. We try to actually take advantage of the idea that we need to know about the patient, but also we need to reach them at the right time, rather than waiting for them to schedule an appointment for us. The second piece was about engagement. We actually drive hundreds of thousands of data points on a daily basis for thousands of patients in real time and try to engage with them on really micro events. So one of the things we leverage is Amazon Pinpoint and some of the engagement about AWS Amplify. So you might think this is great, it was easy. It was not the case. So some of the challenges was actually, even though we were trying to be cloud native, we knew that we had to be deeply integrated in our current care infrastructure, which meant that we needed to integrate with our EHR system. For those who are in healthcare, they understand that EHR system was mostly built in a technology back in the 1970s and 80s. It is monolithic. I think the term API is foreign to our healthcare infrastructure. So what we needed to do, we needed to think about how we re-architect that without giving up our cloud capabilities. So this was very strategic decision again for us. When we were thinking about networking, for instance, our IT and our security teams were like, okay, give us the IP addresses on your VPC on AWS. It's like, we don't have IP addresses. We actually use subnets and VPCs and everything is ephemeral by using Lambda functions. We don't have that capability. So we had to adjust. And I have to say, like, was one of the key features working with our IT team was actually figuring out how we connect these dots. So one of the things we did, for instance, was actually build on top of our healthcare compliance system, our own compliance for cloud. That was a big advantage for us because it helped us actually remove that friction. I give an example about KMS and security keys. Like, we had questions about how do we manage encryption on the cloud. We manage it natively. And the team's like, what is the key? We don't have keys. This is how it's going to build, and we need to adapt this policy. So this takes a lot to actually create that collaboration. But what it helped us is really unlocking us to allow our team to not to have to think about adapting the cloud to healthcare. What we needed to do is actually doing quite the opposite. We needed to bring healthcare to the cloud. So one of the key things, and I would like to highlight, this is one of my favorite AWS service. Lambda is just amazing. I mean, it's super easy to deploy. It allows us to just work on the function. I don't have to care about our service. It scales from 0 to 1,000 concurrent, and it can handle 0 requests as it can handle 1 million requests a second, and I only pay for the service. When we started using Lambda initially, we used it for fast pass access to our providers during COVID. By using Lambda, we saved more than 97% of the cost. It was ridiculously slow and really, really nothing. We paid almost for nothing. We were able to concurrently have thousands of requests per second, but we also were able to shut it down for 0 where we didn't need it. And that helped us to iterate and start developing very fast. What that allowed us to do is start thinking about what if we have an idea we would like to deploy. We did not have to think about the servers. We did not have to think about how to operate it, how to patch it, how to make the security. It was okay, let's launch it and experiment with it. So that allowed us to actually move our focus to experimentation, because now we can build things very easily and we can destroy them very easily. We did not have to do any upfront investment. So with that, I'm just going to hand it to Naki, who's going to explain a little bit more about landing zones.
Thanks, Malik. You know, I have the privilege of meeting lots of people from across the globe, and I honestly don't think I've met anyone as big a fan of Lambda as Malik. Like, I'm going to try to convince him to get a tattoo later at that Mandalay Bay parlor and see if he's going to go on with it. But in all seriousness, I think to peel back, you know, we mentioned earlier this landing zone accelerator for healthcare. This is available on our GitHub. We can post links to it later. But the goal here is, how do we start with a really robust foundation? We want our builders to build. We want our builders to focus in on what is important for their business. So out of the box, you're getting lots of these things that you'd probably be kind of hitting your head against the wall just trying to figure out on your own. So why not start with something that is already based on well-architected principles? Something that our teams have spent a lot of time, you know, working backwards to actually develop and coalesce and come up with the best practices. So once this is in place, the rest of the things can start to emerge, and that's really part of the journey that you've been hearing from Malik. So what is this? Like, we want to get you all doing the shiny, fun, cool stuff that exists on the right side of this continuum, right? But it is a journey. There are components that need to come into play, and this is what Malik's been showcasing over the past 4 years. It's sure, we start with that landing zone accelerator, but then quickly you want to start figuring out what your health data platform is, right? Like when I speak to clinicians, when I speak to administrators, when I speak to patients, they don't really care where this is living or what server it's on or even what Lambda is. But ultimately, we're trying to get to the things on that right side of this column, right? We want to be able to do the types of things that Malik is demonstrating today through Inception, through Froedtert, where we can have point-of-care decision support for that patient based on who they are. So if I'm diabetic and I have a number of conditions about me, and I'm using one of the apps that Malik and team have developed, I want that to be customized to me. I don't want something generic. Like, I want you to actually pay attention to all of this data that we've been pooling, and I want it to be personalized to me. And that's something that we can achieve now because we've gone through on this journey. And I think we're fairly astute individuals as engineers and developers, and we see the common patterns emerge over and over and over again, right? There are certain things that teams are wanting to do, and that's really the middle of this little animation I have here, this graphic I have here. It's that we perceive that, yeah, you want to do analytics, you want to do machine learning, you want to do business intelligence, but again, you kind of want to be abstracted away from the infrastructure, right? You want to run, you want to do the things that, again, affect your business. And to that end, through lots of boots on the ground, being plugged in, you know, spending time with Malik and his brilliant engineers and his brilliant teams, we've formulated this thing that we're calling the Health Data Accelerator. So it's how do we take that concept of that landing zone that we already have and push that envelope further, right? Because they're just common things that you want to be doing. And through this, you get infrastructure as code that you can plop down, you can start running, and you can worry a lot less about the things that you shouldn't have to worry about. Because the security is built in, the services are HIPAA eligible, the core processes are vetted out for you, so you can just start running. But I think you'll want to see what this has led to, and I think starting to see the vision of how AI weaves into this. I'm going to pass this back to Malik for that.
Oh, thanks, Naki. So let's get to the fun stuff. We did this for 3-4 years now, and when we started thinking about it, let's move now to the AI and LLM and large language models and our capabilities. I mean, in healthcare, we have been using machine learning and a lot of the capabilities actually on the research side, but really not much on the care experience side. So one of the things we start building very quickly, and this was actually 1 week after Bedrock was announced, was because of the building foundations we had, actually wasn't that difficult for us to start thinking, how can we connect Bedrock and how we can start using it for actually as a co-pilot for our clinicians? And the way we did it, we used the pattern called the strangler pattern, which is actually hiding our monolithic EHR system behind microservice architecture using Lambda as a middleware. And the idea was we will create this interface so actually Bedrock can communicate using the API to our EHR system in a secure way. What we did late actually after that is also creating, using RAG, augmented retrieval generation, which is allowed us to actually bring our clinical guidelines, our CIN best practice guidelines into S3 and uploading hundreds of our best practice documentations to do grounding of Bedrock on our best practices. We also used RAG crawler and connecting it to our internal documentations, but also our internal website to actually help our physicians, but also our employee to find the right information at the right time. And the results are quite interesting because actually we built also the interface. We hosted everything on Vercel. We had an amazing engineering team. We built this over a weekend and we start iterating and experimenting with it. So actually what I like to say on all of this is like, this was just one value among the entire architecture we have been able to build. And this is some of the kind of the generations and the continual innovation and agility that has been enabled for us by the investment we did in the cloud. Like this could not have been, actually we never thought about this 4 or 5 years ago. But because of this, it allows us to have this ability to transform and being able to be agile and deliver value immediately. And that allowed us to actually make the distance between something that is an idea to something that is deployable to patient and experimented very short. So I'm just going to go back to this idea of why we think about the cloud today as a strategic investment. Our ability to the cloud allows us to do 2 things at the same time, and what we call this dual transformation. It allows us to transform the core business of today. And that's the kind of innovation that you see today by downloading our Froedtert and MCW app. You will see kind of the things like how we can make things digital by default, how we can allow you to have telemedicine enabled by default. One of the interesting experiments was actually building our own video visits on top of our EHR system and integrated seamlessly in our mobile app. What we found, actually, patients had the best experience on our mobile app compared to many other experiments we conducted. But the interesting piece was this, was actually the most of the feedback, we have the highest score of feedback, was not about the app at all. Actually, most of the feedback was about our clinician, and this is what we want. We want actually our technology to disappear. And one of the best value is actually patients not even thinking about the technology behind. They don't care about the latency. They don't care about API response time. They don't care about telemetry and observability. But by building those components, we actually allow them to have the best experience with their providers. But also, by focusing on our cloud transformation and building this very small engineering team, we actually allowed us to think about tomorrow's business. And this is the thing that excites me the most, and I feel is our responsibility as a healthcare system. We are not only operators, we are not only in the business of connecting the dots, we're also in the business of transforming healthcare. Our role is to make sure that the patients receive the best care. And to create the business, we have to think differently. And those are kind of the things that I'm super excited about. So just to give you some of the results. Over the last 3 years, we have seen 10% year-over-year growth of our patient population. So our digital services are not anymore an after-visit summary or scheduling for patients who are already established. We are starting to see patients coming to our services by default through a digital experience. We also seen 20% growth year over year of monthly active users. What this means actually is not that we are delivering only more services, that patients find it more helpful and more useful. And actually 75% of our patients last year interacted with us digitally at least once. And this what tells us is actually patients want to be served at their convenience and accessible and access to the services at any time they want. They expect us to be actually treating them as consumers. In terms of some of the clinical outcomes, we actually have seen that our digital therapeutics program helped us improve mental health services to our patients. This is an experiment we conduct on our mobile app where we actually, rather than having a clinician prescribe to a patient, what if we let the patient go through a journey where they evaluate their mental health readiness and we provide to them services that they can self-prescribe. And one of that is to integrate with a mental health provider that they will follow up through 14 days. And what I've seen is patients engage a lot with the service, that they found it helpful, and because it's delivered by a trusted healthcare system, they actually complete it. This is also something exciting, and this is the type of transformation that actually I'm very happy to announce today. We are launching by the end of this year our first digital-first primary care clinic. What I mean by this is actually, rather than thinking about technology as the back office of our clinics, we actually try the opposite. Our clinics is actually the back office of our technology. So today, if you are in Wisconsin, you can get your first primary care that is fully digital and digital first by default. You can subscribe to the service. You don't need to anymore to go to the clinic or an office to schedule an appointment. Everything is provided for you 24/7. It's delivered by our providers, trained at Froedtert, and it's digital first. It doesn't mean that it's only digital. So if you need to be seen at one of our clinics, if you need to have a lab, if you want to come to our hospital, we can manage that too. And this idea was, what if we actually, again, connect the cloud strategy, care, and our healthcare system capabilities together? Because technology is great, but trust is more important. And our patients trust our healthcare system, and that's the reason we're building this. So happy to announce HLS Health is going to be launched by the end of the year, and if you're in Wisconsin, please join. It's an interesting experience, and the technology behind is just amazing. We're using a lot of the capabilities around generative AI. We start exploring how we can build that experience. And the hope is actually our providers will be able to treat patients at scale. Something else, I would like to announce today that we are actually open sourcing our CDK construct on AWS. Naki mentioned that I love Lambda, and for that, I am open sourcing our Lambda functions, and I'm open sourcing also our secure and HIPAA-compliant data sources on AWS. We believe that building this and making sure that actually we tell people how we are doing is very important. And we actually invite you all to contribute to this. I hope that this is going to be the beginning of more construct on CDK, of our infrastructure as code. You can start using it. It has all the instruction, and it has been battle tested in production for the last few years. So please join us and contribute to the code. And with that, I will leave the last words to Naki.
So I think Melik and team are rather clever with HLS Health, like announcing it. Like I've been trying to get an invite to it too, but he did mention you have to live in Wisconsin. It's start of winter, I'm pretty sure, right? And I mean, I'm compelled enough to move there just to try it out, which I think is saying a lot. But I want to spend a moment here on this too, right? This is so incredibly unique. Like I've spent a good chunk of time looking at GitHub repos and what people are open sourcing. What Melik and his brilliant engineers have just put this out there. So you've had the opportunity to snapshot lots and lots of QR codes, I'm sure, across this conference. Please do click on this one, look at what's there. Because I don't know of any other healthcare organization that's gone through the trouble of not only doing this, but then putting it out to the world. Like, this is something that I don't think has been done. But I think it also motivates and catalyzes where we are with the industry. Like, why can't everyone else do this? Like, this ought to just be native. Like, everything else should be this way. So highly encourage you to get deep into this. I know we're wrapping up a little bit early, but I do want to come back and just speak to some of the things that we've highlighted and I think brought to your attention today. One of them being the Landing Zone Accelerator for Healthcare. That's something that is out there today. That's available through our regular GitHub repositories. I also mentioned our health data accelerator. We love the word accelerator because we want you to be moving fast. So I apologize for the reuse of that phrase, but that is also something that's available by contacting us, working with us and our teams. You have my contact info here. You also have Melik's contact info. We highly encourage you to reach out, and we're really looking for collaboration. Like, we want to change what has been the status quo of keeping things behind locked doors. We want to open things as much as possible because that's, I think, how we truly get momentum and innovation. So again, generally, thank you for your engagement. You have a survey that we'd love for you to take as well, and generally hope that you appreciate the rest of the conference. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.